What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Dev Talks with your host Travian. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about aspiring software engineers. Now, if you want to be a software engineer, we're going to see we reacted to Pooja before. She makes some really good videos. Check out her channel. I'm going to be linking this video down below in the description for her credit. If you like her video, go give her a like and subscribe to her channel. But we're going to see what she has to talk. She gives some good advice sometimes. She offers some... She interviews well to get some real good answers from people who are in the industry and whatnot. So without further ado, let's dive into this. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It all helps and it goes a long way for this channel as well too. Share it with all your friends and families. And let's dive in to see how engineers can get their job.
Software engineers were being overvalued before, and now we're just correcting for what makes sense. This was probably closer to what the expectation was back in 2018.
Everybody was just throwing money at you.
These so-called tech bros were making upwards of $300,000, $400,000, and even $500,000 as junior and mid-level engineers. This is me back in 2018, a fresh new grad from UW-Madison. I had just landed a job as a junior engineer at a data analytics startup in Chicago, and it was fully remote at the time. I got to travel and live in Greece, making $75,000 a year while paying $300 a month in rent, which was insane to me at the time. My hours were flexible, and every evening I got to explore the rich culture of a beautiful European city. Life was good, to say the least.
2020 was more about having so many job opportunities. I would get LinkedIn messages from recruiters twice per day. It was great, especially considering where we are now.
You're probably in a position where you were told that becoming a software engineer was the answer to having this grandiose life. A life of flexibility, high pay, the ability to challenge yourself, and even carry a little bit of prestige that came along with the title. So I wanted to talk about whether or not there's still some truth to that narrative. Can you still make $300,000 total compensation packages in the Bay Area and even eat free food on a freaking campus? What's my honest advice about becoming a software engineer right now? Well, let's break it down. To start, we need to define a tech bro. What the heck is a tech bro? Let's find out. So an educated male lacking in social skills who also happens to work in tech. Many of them are libertarians, of course, who sim for Elon Musk and or people trying to reinvent the wheel with some dumb new technology. And then the example they give, this is the tech bro. With this new Blorgascorg 3000, people will easily be able to get around the city without a car. Alice says, please stop trying to reinvent the train. So that's an idea of what a tech bro is. Clearly, tech bros have a bad rap, but deep down, they were the envy of the internet. These so-called tech bros were making upwards of $300,000, $400,000, and sometimes even $500,000 as junior and mid-level engineers. They were making day-in-the-life videos about how amazing their lives were, how they barely did any work, and how they went on lavish vacations all the time. I mean, seriously, when do they even work? But here's the thing, social media doesn't always show the entire picture. We all know that. When you see these glamorous videos of people coasting by in tech and making a lot of money, there's actually a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that go into the whole process that isn't actually being shown. To earn that coveted...
I want to stop there and let's get a quick round of applause because it's never like that. That's why everybody gets these misconception of what being a software engineer is. You're not going to be on a couch chilling all day, okay? A lot of work goes into it. There's some days I have to work 12 hours. I mean, it just is what it is. We get paid salary, and some days require more work than others. You have stuff that's scheduled at different times you have to do. You have to be working to type out a bunch of stuff. You don't understand how much work it goes into in a day. Yeah, some of y'all might be saying it's easy. Well, guess what? Why are you not a software engineer? That's what I have to say to you. Because it's not easy. It's not easy to get the degree. It's not easy to get the job or internship and pass the internship. It's not as easy as y'all think it is. It's actually hard work to even get into the position to do that. Now then you have to keep your position, and then you have to grow in this position as well too. And it's a position that you have to constantly learn in and constantly do all that extra crap in. Yes, it's nice. It has its pluses and bonuses and whatnot, but never trust social media for any of that. People aren't going to show you everything. They're not going to show you everything that's bad. Look on Instagram. When's the last time you seen something like somebody post about something terribly bad that's going on in their life on a constant basis? People aren't the only time that stuff goes bad for people isn't a breakup or a death in a family, bad stuff happens all the time to everybody in life. Everybody's always going through stuff. They never post it all the time on social media. Two, it's none of social media's business. But at the same time, like, it, take stuff with a grain of salt. You don't know how stuff is entirely. You can have all those amenities. It can look like fun, like you don't do much. Your manager can be the worst manager ever. They can manage you differently at this company compared to this other company that doesn't have all that fun stuff there. You might have a better work-life balance at another company than one that they're trying to express and show you. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And all this other stuff at one of the FANG companies. Go shot at them. I'm just saying, it's possible. Take stuff with a grain of salt. Sprinkle it, get a little idea, little flavor, seasoning on there, just so you can get a little idea what's going on. Because besides that, let me tell you something real quick. Let me tell you guys something. You do not know 100% of what's going on. I'm being so serious. You do not know ever 100% of what's going on unless you actually doing it. And like, for instance, what I do on a day-to-day basis for my career, another software engineer could be having 80% similar experience. That 20% experience disconnect can mean a whole lot of different things. It's not always the same. It's not always pretty. It's not always rainbows. But hey, that's all I just wanted to say real quick. She got me on a whole tangent and stuff. We only 2 minutes into this already. Come on, Pooja. You gotta do better than this. You're getting me riled up.
Tech Bro label, you typically had to go to a good university, study LeetCode for hours, go through several rounds of interviews, and then keep up with the demands of work and politics long enough to get promoted. Now, I'm not defending tech bros necessarily, I'm just saying that there's a lot more to it than eating free food and getting massages every day at work. And I hate to say it, but most people would hate actually doing the work required to get these glamorous jobs. The perks actually make it look easier than it is. So what does this have to do with becoming a software engineer now? Well, first, I'm just trying to create transparency over what it felt like to be a software engineer back in 2020. People have a very distorted view of the market today because they didn't really know what was going on back then. All they had for reference was the videos they were watching online, which again was over-glamorized. The common tech bro, even though it's cringy to admit, was actually creating some sort of value. Otherwise, Zuckerberg wouldn't bother paying his engineers upwards of $500,000 a year. Don't be fooled by the relatability content for working 2 hours a day and dragging yourself out of bed to actually get to work at 11 a.m. That's not actually true. Okay, so is it a good idea to become a software engineer now? What all has changed between then and now? Well, a lot and a little. As we mentioned earlier, the tech bro life wasn't exactly what we expected. This was probably closer to what the expectation was back in 2018. Oh, wait, you guys can't see that. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so this was closer to the expectation. Learning quickly and managing time with your manager. So in 2020, you were expected to learn quickly, as is any software engineer, but honestly, you weren't necessarily expected to learn at a pace where you were working extra hours. There was more flexibility around that. Next one, medium productivity. So that means a PR every week. And I think every week is probably not that much. It really depends on your team too. But having a couple PRs a week, I think that would indicate, okay, you're
one PR a week is insane. Nah. I can understand like certain projects. I can understand you can have a PR that you work on for a little bit longer than others. Then there's it really depends on what you're doing and what you're building and stuff. Cause in instance, if you are putting everything in one PR, that's a problem. You need to start breaking features down into separate segregated PRs and keep them separate so that you can track different kinds of work and different features on different stuff, and then they can be allocated in a right amount of time and you can get that work done. As a heads up for y'all, just take this with a grain. Don't take it with a grain of salt. Do it. What I just said, try it out. I bet you it'll look like you're getting so much more work done. Your productivity will feel so much more better. And then since you're feeling more productive, you'll be able to get more done as well too. Because when you have something all together in one project and one PR, it looks a mess. For one, you don't know where everything you don't get to break everything into its own separate parts and areas. It's all together and it's all jumbled up. So then the PR is going to stay open because your concept is I'm going to keep this open for a month plus until I get everything done. And then it doesn't look right. It just doesn't. So try that out, see how that works for you, and I bet you it'll work wonders.
Semi-productive on the team, you could coast to some extent, but of course you still need to have an understanding of the code base and learn and participate in those weekly discussions with your team. Next, show up to the team meetings and participate in conversations. Again, this is kind of self-explanatory. You just participate in the conversations, just observe what's going on. A lot of times, actually even the first 2 years of my career, I didn't really speak much in meetings, and I did get feedback that I should speak more, but when I didn't really have much to say, I mean, I did my work, I showed up on time. I didn't really have much to say there. Reasonable flexibility on deadlines. Also, honestly, there was a lot of reasonable flexibility back in 2020. I think if something wasn't going to get done and you communicated with your manager, the manager would be really good about allowing you to push the deadline back. Now, not so much. And lastly, autonomy with your development and testing. So again, back then, you had a lot more freedom over how your work was going to get done and when it was going to get done. Again, the when part is more about that movable deadline, but how you get your work done was totally up to you. You could work asynchronous a lot of times. You didn't really have to show up to all meetings if you didn't feel like they were relevant. There wasn't that much accountability in terms of time spent at the job, but there was a little bit more accountability on what work you ended up getting done. So that was totally up to you. Okay, so how exactly has this changed? So now you no longer get to manage time with your manager. You need to manage your time with AI. I think that's really important. Kind of also self-explanatory. AI is taking the market like a storm. So you need to know how to use tools like Copilot, like Oglube, like all these different internal tools that your company will probably use. Try to use that to 10x your productivity. Okay, now because of AI, you can no longer do PRs every week. You have to do PRs pretty much every other day, honestly. So probably 4 to 5 times a week. You probably can't read my writing.
I don't agree with this so far. I'm gonna go through. Let me let her finish because she's kind of putting this the wrong way. She's definitely putting this the wrong way. But let me let her finish. I'm gonna give her a chance.
But 4 to 5 times a week for PRs, I think that's pretty normal, especially given that you're using AI tooling. That's the new expectation. You can no longer just show up to these meetings. You actually have to participate in them, and you have to actually bring a lot of value in terms of system design, in terms of programming. All of these technical skills are now something that you have to showcase out loud to your teammates. And the reasonable flexibility on deadlines, you can say goodbye to that because that's no longer the case. Now deadlines are a lot tighter and you're not going to get as much leniency. You're most likely going to have to come up with a very valid excuse if you have to push the deadline back. Otherwise, you're going to have to talk to your manager's manager to help them understand what's going on. So if that means working longer hours, typically that's the case. And lastly, autonomy with your development and testing. Say goodbye to that because you're going to be micromanaged a lot more. So that's kind of the biggest difference with that aspect. You're going to want to get used to someone breathing down your neck. And I think that's a normal part of the process, especially when you're working in a market that doesn't value you as much anymore.
All right. So we got through her whole thing. So for certain specific areas, I agree with certain areas. Now, mind you, I've been a software engineer now for about 3 years. We're in 2024. So this is a year after COVID. So when everybody started getting back into work and stuff, that's when I got my job. And that's when I started working in the field for software engineer. So everything that's through there, that list, I have some idea of what she is talking about. But I also have a full idea because I've been working for 3 years. So like I've kind of seen the shift, but I wouldn't say it's it's entirely how she puts it. So the first point was to manage your time with your managers, and this says manage your time with AI. Just because she crossed out the manager part do not like remove your manager out of that workflow. Like, no, you still need to be talking to the people who are above you so you can get some idea of your work, where you are currently at, where you're standing at, and you can have a bunch of different conversations with them. It is very important to have a strong relationship with the people who are above you because you can get a lot of stuff out of them. You can get a lot of help potentially, especially hey, they like you, they see your drive and everything. They're going to be more willing to help you, especially if you're doing what is needed to get done. So I wouldn't say it's like you crossed them out fully, but yes, you do need to start incorporating AI as a tool to become a better engineer and how you can get stuff a little bit done better. Now, this goes to 4 to 5 times a week portion. Just every engineer, depending, this is for aspiring engineers, so this is kind of scary that she's staying right here. You might, starting off, you have a small level of flexibility if you are like entry. If you're straight into entry, you're trying to figure out what's going on, you need to understand the workflows and stuff. This is why I recommend everybody do an internship so you can kind of get some experience of how it is to work in there before you just jump in to an entry role. And you still will kind of get some of the internshipping experience and pay and whatnot, but that's, you starting off, it'll be around there. You must be productive though. You have to get stuff done. Companies are now managing your productivity. They want to see how much you can get done. They want to see how well you can get stuff done, and all across the board for that. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. No excuses. They're going to be seeing how productive all of the teams are. The least productive teams, why are you least productive? It does kind of feel like that depending on where you might be able to be working. I don't work at every company. That doesn't mean 100% of companies are doing this, but if she's a software engineer, then it's likely that it's happening as well too. For her, meetings is very important. Starting off on somewhere new that you don't understand what is going on, there's two things you can do. One, it's good to sit down and just listen to certain meetings, especially jumping into the career if you're a new software engineer, because you're there to learn. You need to understand what's going on, and they're talking about a lot of stuff, and you just need to figure out what is going on so that you can properly talk in these kinds of rooms. Being able to talk in the room is a very good thing to learn because it shows the level of engineer that you're at, especially the topics that you do talk about. Now, the second thing you can do is ask questions. Whether it's in that meeting or with whoever's in the call after the meeting, feel free to ask them questions about it, and so that you can provide more context so you're able to learn, build off of that, and go beyond wherever you are at that current point. And I want to talk to this in a way of fresh engineers, not people who've been in here. I feel like this doesn't do too much justice because she's just outlining stuff and not like telling them new people how it is. And this is the game that I'm trying to give you guys that is new to it. That's the next thing. No flexibility on time frames. That really depends. You can only get stuff done when you get stuff done at the end of the day. This goes back into the productivity point. Just, you need to be productive. Every company is expecting their employees to be productive. And time frames change. They might change because priorities change from upstairs, or whoever's designating the priorities of your work. Hey, they might change. So some stuff might be able to get pushed out. And then in the world of engineering and being a software engineer, roadblocks come up all the time. You can think, hey, I've done this before. I'll get this done in 3 days. Hey, now something's broken. It doesn't work how it's intended to. And got to open a ticket. That takes a whole day out of that specific project or that you're working on because it needs to get fixed, or you need to be able to communicate what's going on or find a workaround and stuff. So it takes longer. Stuff happens. Stuff will happen. At the end of the day, stuff will happen. There's nothing you can control. But as long as it's reasonable, This isn't like, oh, I'm not gonna make it, but nothing came up. Like if you're like that, like, oh, nothing really blocked me from getting this done. I just need more time. That can look like a problem. It is going to look like a problem, and it continue will. And the last point, I don't understand as far as no freedom. I feel like I have quite a bit of freedom where I currently work, but who knows? Maybe she doesn't. So I can't talk on her experiences. I can only talk on mine. So that last point I really can't reference to. But I haven't heard, hey, since you have AI as a tool, you need to be more productive, but you should be able to be. It's kind of like a silent understanding in a way of just you have more available to you so that you can get stuff done. And if you are struggling to get stuff done, use the AI. Get it done that way. Use it in a way to help you get stuff done properly, efficiently. You'll be okay. Trust me. All right.
So you might look at these differences and think, okay, what's the point? Why would I want to be a software engineer when it seems like so much more effort to make the same amount of money that people were making just 2 years ago doing 20% less? Well, you could think about it like this. The market that we were in before was a unicorn. That wasn't normal. People were making tons of money. They were traveling. They had no accountability. And of course, I don't want to negate what I said earlier. The tech bros did make it seem too good to be true. And there was still a lot of work to be done. You didn't have to study, do lead code problems to get into these tough companies. Once you had the job, though, conditions were a lot better than a lot of other professions. You didn't have to show up for 24 hours a day like a doctor, and you didn't have to spend hours after work looking at briefs like a lawyer. You did have a lot of flexibility and autonomy and freedom. Now, if you think about it, it just feels like a normal job. That's the main thing that's changed, right? There's less demand for you, and so you're treated as such, and that's just a normal thing in the market. And I think we have to come to terms with that. It may get better over time, but I don't want to promise something that I actually don't have any control over either.
I really hope like in 2-3 years we're like done with the layoffs and we are back to not the 2020 phase. I don't know if that will ever happen again, but like go back to some sort of normalcy.
So that's kind of the way that you can look at it, where the market has just normalized. It hasn't gotten worse. And if you keep that positive mindset, it'll help you find a job moving forward. So the question we've all been asking ourselves, is it still worth it to stay in tech? In my humble opinion, yes, it still is. Hear me out. The main thing is you should stay in this industry for the right reasons. We've already seen the people that have joined tech just for the money.
So the biggest perk, I would say, working in tech, I would say the money. Like, I know somebody else might tell you, like, it's so exciting to problem solve. Like, okay, it's all great, but if I have to pick one thing, like, I think money is great.
That, my friends, is the wrong reason. Sure, you'll make money in the beginning, but you'll work for 5 years until finally you realize that you're burnt out, you're not enjoying the work, and you hate your coworkers. Only do it if you're somewhat passionate about solving problems every day and learning new technologies pretty often, because this is the type of job where you're going to continuously learn new things. I know there's different levels to software engineering, but because things come out so quickly, sometimes junior engineers might be the experts compared to principal engineers, and you'll just have to get used to that. Now, that being said, we did go over the new expectations for being a software engineer in 2024. Yes, it's going to feel more like a job than an everyday party, but honestly, it should feel like a job. Software engineers were being overvalued before, and now we're just correcting for what makes sense. You'll still be compensated well, you'll still get free food if you're in the Bay Area, and you'll still have a decent amount of flexibility. For context, when I started in the industry, I could not even work from home for a single day. I had to sit in traffic for 1 hour a day, each way, every single day. I know, the horror. The fact is, what we have today is still a luxury. But in order to keep this luxury, you just have to work a little bit harder to get it. It's not dissimilar to being a doctor, a lawyer, or a psychologist. Those jobs are actually a lot more physically demanding, and in terms of your hours spent, a lot more demanding on that side as well.
Yes, like tech may not have great work-life balance, or at least the image of a great work-life balance, but when you compare it to other industries, other jobs, it is actually pretty solid. It can get better than this, in my opinion.
So that's about it for this episode or this video. I think we actually have a really good work-life balance, especially if you're working at home remotely. Mine is pretty decent, I can say. The The only thing that messes with my work life balance is all the extra stuff that I do besides just working. Like there's so much extracurricular activities that I do outside of work as well too, that everything is just so busy all the time. But working from remotely, I feel is uh, fine. My balance is fine, even though I do have some long days and whatnot, and there's sometimes stuff can be required more than usual. Then hey, that's just how it is at the end of the day. But hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think. How's your work-life balance? What tips would you give to aspiring engineers? I feel like I have to make my own video of this on my personal channel. I I feel like this is kind of I think some new entry level aspiring software engineers, if they saw this, it might scare them a bit what's going on, but this is also realistic to a point. So there are good and bad things about this, but don't forget to look at her video down in the description. If you like it, don't feel free to like and subscribe to her. At the same time, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe here. Let me know, guys. Let's chat down below. Feel free, like all of them. I try to get to as many as I can with the time going up. But if you want to see more, video clicked right up here or in the description as well below too. And peace. See you guys next time.